Splatoon scene, especially at low level, coaching is seen as a necessary component of winning. For many teams, the next step after filling their roster is to search for a coach that can help them climb the ladder and make a name for themselves. Mesopelagic is no exception to this approach, and while I don't think it's bad to think this way, I also don't think it's all that ideal either. But I'm not here to argue about the ideal way to find a coach. If you want my thoughts on when teams should be looking for coaches, I'll link a thread in the description below where I talk about why I think lots of teams jump the gun and recruit coaches too quickly. Right now, I'm here to discuss the methodology behind coaching, how it works, what it's meant for, and why coaches, well, coach. And who better to call on for a video on coaching than the big boss of Mesopelagic himself, Jobb.
Hey, I'm Jobb. I am the coach of Mesopelagic. I've been playing Splatoon itself since it came out in 2015, but I haven't gotten into the competitive scene until about 2021, where I was on various teams, but my main team was KO Calamari, which I got in around 2022. At the time, we were about a Div 5 team. We won FTIU 17. We've placed in Great White Bracket and SOS plenty of times, I think 3 or 4 to be exact. And ever since then, I've just kind of been in like pickup hell, where I've been just doing as many little pickups as I can, just getting the results I can. But I've been coaching Mesopelagic since about February of this year.
Now that all of the introductions are out of the way, the members of Mesopelagic have compiled a list of questions we've been dying to ask our coach. So sit back, grab a snack or a drink, and enjoy. What was your journey in competitive Splatoon like before becoming a coach?
I got into competitive Splatoon back in 2021, 2022. My first ever team was around a Div 9 team, and I played backline, believe it or not, back then. And my comp career went until about middle to late 2023. I pushed myself at that time to Div 5 through various tournaments, results through scrims, and Ludi. There were many different tournaments and brackets that I ran. I played the hell out of the game then. And then, after that, I've never fully quit per se. In 2024, I did quite a few tournament runs, and I did pickups, and I eventually got myself shot to Div 4, and that's the highest I've been. But it's been a little quiet, 2025, 2026. And 2026 is, here I am, I'm a coach. Yippee!
What was your motivation for becoming a coach for a low-level team instead of a mid-level or otherwise more advanced one?
So, my big motivation for coaching like a low-level team is I never truly shot beyond Div 4, so I kind of felt like being a coach for a team that's like 2 or 3 divs below me, like, I don't know how much knowledge I'd be able to share that they couldn't pick up from like a coach that might be Div, 1 or 2, in my opinion. I felt, going for a team that's like more entry, there's a lot more wisdom I can bestow upon them. I'd be able to see changes and not struggle to give them that advice to see the changes. And honestly, it in a way, it feels a bit more rewarding. Lower level allows for different comps that you don't really see in the higher level, and there's like more sporadic growth, and I feel like that's rewarding and fun to me. And the reason I quit comp and become a coach, I quit comp mainly due to just time in my personal life, but I always wanted to still contribute to the scene somehow or some way, and I felt being a coach is the way I could help and be involved without putting in way too much time a week that I really could.
How do you communicate with the team effectively?
I like to try to touch base with everybody as frequently as I can. While I do like to write notes to communicate with the team, I feel it's best when we all casually sit back, watch a VOD, and I have the team ask questions, and we just kind of talk about it in a very casual sense.
What is your coaching philosophy?
My big coaching philosophy is that I believe with the right mindset and enough planning, you can shoot well far beyond what you think you're capable of, or well past what you think your limit is. I think mindset is such an important thing that people really do not focus on. So I think that's my strongest belief there.
How did you develop your pedagogy, and was your pedagogy inspired by anyone in particular?
So a lot of it is self-taught for the most part, and I guess it was also kind of adapted from like former teachers former teachings of older coaches of mine that I've had in years past. But my actual teaching style, funny enough, was inspired, I'd say, by my mother. As she didn't teach me how to play Splatoon, but she'd help me learn different life skills, but not go the full way, and made me ask questions and learn a little bit of it on my own under supervision. So yeah.
How do you incorporate theory crafting into teaching?
I like to incorporate theory crafting kind of in a on the field kind of way. For instance, if somebody wants to try a new weapon, or we want to try a new build, one of the ways I like to go about it is maybe going into some open queue and trying it from there, and seeing what works and what doesn't work in that point of view, or in that scenario, compared to trying it for the first time in a tournament and then it doesn't go so well. But I like to talk about it and bring it into the real world, so to speak, just to see how it actually feels.
How to use and incorporate video review into practice?
I like to incorporate VODs in a lot of ways. Obviously, I try to put out 2 to 3 VOD reviews per scrim or event that Meso does, but I find they're important. I find they're really important in the way of I can visually call out or see what's gone wrong, or reward what's gone right from there. And when something happens in a scrim and I happen to be in VC or after a tournament, I can reference a previous VOD that's been out and be hey, remember remember when you say pushed wrong with the Rainmaker? This happened here. Try to reference what I told you in this situation, because there's repeats of maps and modes in tournaments, and it can help you guys, form, an overall game plan, having more information per map and mode just readily available. So I would say, I like to incorporate them in, a kind of like a study guide type of way, where you can reference back to this at any point.
Why do you coach Meso the way you do, and how do you determine if it works?
The reason I like to kind of coach Meso, I like to refer to it as, an individual but whole kind of way, where I like to watch VODs from, a top-down point of view, but then kind of go back and look at everybody individually, and see where I can find the little problems, and, nip them from there. And I feel like the reason I do that is so I'm not everybody's individual coach, I'm the team's coach, but the reason I do that is because I can kind of work with people on just a smaller level and kind of form that connection to, figure out ways we can tackle problems, rather than, guiding the whole team 100% as a whole. And I kind of determine how it works just through watching future games. Improvement doesn't happen overnight, per se, but, if I see, 2 or 3 scrims from now, oh, someone's finally stopped going in super far, or, specials are being, popped at correct times, I'm kind of seeing there's that learning that's happening there, and that's how I can kind of figure out, okay, things are working well.
Additionally, are there any ways it could be challenging to coach us?
Some ways it can be challenging are kind of like the skill split in a way, where it's been quite a while since I was lower level, so there are certain things where I have to realize lower level teams might not be as experienced in, calling out or positioning, and sometimes it can be, tricky to try to find, those learning techniques, to make it click with Meso, but overall, I think it's been, I've been overcoming that fine, and I think everybody's been learning just fine, but I have found there are times where, what might be normal knowledge to me, might not be as normal to Meso, and that's kind of normal in a skill split, I would say.
How do you determine what's most important for us to learn?
The big way I determine what's most important for the team to lose is I like to look at the games that the team has lost and try to find themes in the reasons they're losing. And from there, I try to find that biggest reason and spearhead that as the number one thing that needs to be learned. For instance, I've seen games where special placement or special timing have costed a game before. And that's where I'm like, okay, we need to hammer down where and when you need to be popping specials. And with who. So it really, to me, it just comes down to what's costing games, or what could be costing games.
How do you measure progress? Have we had any big breakthrough moments?
I measure progress just based on, time going by and the little things in games. For instance, there might be games where the team might be struggling with their specials, or how they're placed and positioning. And if I see, 2 weeks after I VOD reviewed, oh wow, they're really improving here. That's kind of how I measure it, is just based on time. I kind of like to compare, every 2 or 3 scrims. I like to see if things have been done differently. And obviously it's not that down to a science, but that's the way I've done it. And I think the team has had some breakthrough moments under my watch, and I keep referencing this, but when I first started watching or coaching for Mesopelagic, the biggest thing for me was the special positioning was not all too great, which is normal for a team that's around their division. But I've really hammered down place your when and where you should be placing your specials, and I've noticed especially during a lot of their looty sets that they've been doing, specials are consistently or mostly popped right by each other and around the same time. And right by, I don't mean that necessarily right position next to each other, but they're popped one after the other, and I've really seen them have a really good looty run over because of it. So I would say that's the big breakthrough I've noticed.
How do you prepare lower level teams for environments against stronger teams?
The way I like to prepare lower level teams, like Meso, for fights against higher level teams is quite simple because it's what I was taught and it's my philosophy. At the end of the day, the enemy team disregard the names above their heads and go at it and play your best. At the end of the day, I've seen some upsets like never before, and just because somebody's a higher division than you does not mean they win. So I like to tell them, Meso, at the end of the day, pixels on a screen, go at them like any other scrim, and try to win.
Do you have any advice about managing nerves during big events?
So the answer to this is somewhat similar to the last one, but I'll go more into it. Nerves are a killer and a run ender for big events, be it a tournament or any kind of bigger, more than a scrim. And what I always tell them and what I always tell myself, like before, it's pixels on a screen. Disregard the names above those heads. Treat this like any other match and play your best. Everybody's gonna have some kind of nerves during a big event, but it comes down to managing them. Taking the proper, I know I've somewhat brought this up, but taking proper breaks when you can and just breathing in between matches is so crucial. But at the end of the day, you are playing at your best here. If you can just take a moment and relax if you can. Nerves are never going to completely go away, but just keeping them to a minimum by whatever means you can is all I can hammer down during big events.
How do you provide constructive feedback to players without discouraging them?
So, sometimes when I see a player do something that's not great or maybe a bad play, I like to approach that very carefully. I don't ever want to make somebody feel bad or discouraged. I lightly like to suggest other ways that the play could have been approached or how things could have gone differently. But in a nice way. At the end of the day, it's a game, and I never want to make somebody feel bad, especially because mistakes happen. People are gonna learn. So I just like to suggest alternative ways to approach things, or why they shouldn't have done that.
How do you balance teaching fundamentals versus teaching more advanced techniques?
So, yeah, I try to watch a few games and see what exactly the players, I guess, are proficient at versus what needs to be worked on. And from there, if I find that, oh, this player is kind of struggling with, like, a few, like, more beginner tactics, I want to hammer those down before I, like, possibly overwhelm them with something that's a little more advanced and above their pay grade. Because at the end of the day, I really want to avoid overwhelming people.
Does coaching low-level teams change your own understanding of the game?
I find that coaching low level has made me realize that certain things about the game that are like almost second nature don't come as commonly down, and it makes me look at the game from like a much broader perspective and not like within the lens of just my competitive experience. It's kind of been a little eye-opening for me in a way.
What are common mistakes at low level, and how do you address them?
I find that the most common mistakes at low level have to be callouts and aggression. I would say that a lot of low level teams are coming almost, I don't want to say like this verbatim, but it feels as if they're coming from a solo queue perspective where they have to play more roles than what they're actually supposed to, and everybody's just going up and fighting each other. And I try to address this in the way of, during VOD review, I will zoom in on people who are like too far up and just be like, hey, where are you? Move back a little bit. And you know, there's been other ways where I've like opened up sendo charts and just kind of visualized like where everybody should be positioned, just as a way to help.
Have you noticed any key differences between coaching low-level teams compared to coaching mid-level ones?
The biggest difference that I've seen between low-level and mid-level is not necessarily mechanics, but it's more so game sense. Whereas mid-level, the biggest thing I see is people are way more on top of their positioning and callouts, where, you know, in mid-level, even when I played, like, everybody was, like, much more quick to call out the position of an enemy player or chain specials together, and you kind of knew everything just based on the callouts for the most part, whereas low level, this necessarily is still in like the root stage where people are just kind of working on it, but you don't hear as many callouts. And I think callouts and positioning just are the two biggest things that I tend to notice that are different between the two.
When someone starts out looking to coach, how would you recommend going about finding a team that they gel with?
So, a lot of the community is on Blue Sky or Discord, and the one place I would recommend for looking to find a team to coach, and it's where, not so much where I found Meso, but it's where I found other teams in the past, is the Splatoon recruitment and free agency server. There's a ton of people either looking for teammates, coaches, or just general advice there. And I'm sure there's other really big Splatoon Discords out there that have those resources. And when it comes to finding a team that you kind of jive with, it's a little tricky because it's kind of like finding a team to play on. You really, truly don't know until you've given it a little bit of time. It's trial and error, and it can be tricky because you might not find the team you want at first. But there are so many teams out there, and I'm sure there's one for everybody. But it's trial and error. It's socially feeling it out. It's seeing if the players are willing to reciprocate like your advice. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but at the end of the day, it's trial and error.
What do you generally look for in teams when you're considering coaching?
What I generally look for in teams I'm coaching comes down to two things: personality and problem. Personality-wise is, like, I need to find a team that's gonna be willing to, like, that I'm, like, willing to set aside the time and hang out with. Like, I'm not gonna, personally, I can't really coach a team, with players that I don't really care for or, like, don't get along with all too well. And problem-wise, it's, can I identify the problem this team is having, and do I have a good solution for it? Because I'm not gonna go and coach a team if I can't realistically solve their issue or find an issue. So I would say those are the two biggest things I look for.
How do you integrate yourself into a team that already has established dynamics? Especially for a team like Mesopelagic, who has been around for over a year now.
So I'd say for this one, and I'll answer this from my point of view with Meso, but the way I like to integrate myself into a team that's been established for more than a year at this point is I like to try, when I came here, I tried to just hang out as much as I could and talk in VC and get to know the people as much as I could. And from there, I just got to, like, know people and be more friendly with them, and that allowed me to kind of integrate myself more. And it also, as like a bonus, I guess it made, like, VOD reviewing and, like, live reviewing with the team a lot more easy, because it's a more friendly, casual thing because I know everybody on the team, whereas compared to, like, a few months ago where it's like I wouldn't have known you guys, like, I'd be all nervous and it'd be difficult.
Is there a difference between coaching one tricks and coaching flex players?
So for a long time, I was a one-trick player. So when it comes to coaching one tricks, it's a little tricky because if I don't play their weapon, I have to give the limited knowledge I have of that weapon to help. Whereas with flex players, it's a little easier to be able to give more, like, general advice, as there's a more wider pool to relate to almost. I love coaching one tricks though, because it picks my brain and it makes me think a little more about how to approach certain things, because one trick players inherently have a bit more weaknesses than, say, a flex player. But I would say inherently, it comes down to, there's different general advice that would go to a flex player that can't necessarily apply to a one trick.
How do you go about giving feedback with other coaches also on the team?
I give feedback just as I would if I were by myself versus if there were other coaches on the team. At the end of the day, coaches are a resource. We're all going to have our own opinions. And if there's other coaches on the team, that's great. If there's not, that's also great. I don't think, for me, it changes much when it comes to, like, what I was gonna say. The most different is I might ask, or I might say, like, oh, if you want a second opinion on this, you could always consult this other coach and see what they say, just for more ideas. But at the end of the day, it's just an additional resource.
Does it affect workload? Do you have conflicting feedback, and if so, how do you handle it? Have you noticed a difference between being a solo coach and having multiple coaches?
Having multiple coaches on the team, I feel, is nice in the sense of when you have another coach, you can kind of divvy up tasks per person a little more, so it's a little less to individually do. I haven't really personally dealt with, having like a big conflict, and I know I'm mainly the only coach on Meso, so like I haven't come into a situation with conflicting feedback, but if it came to it, at least in my opinion, it would just come down to we both coaches have a discussion and we work from there and come to a common agreement, because conflicting feedback is not good. But yeah, that's what I got.
Have you ever considered coaching for other games? And would anything carry over from Splatoon?
So I haven't really considered coaching for other games. However, I do jokingly coach my friends through Mario Galaxy because I like to speedrun that game, and I like to be an evil coach during that and yell and guide. But no, Splatoon's like the only game I could argue I'm good enough at to where I'd be a proficient coach. I'd say Splatoon is my most knowledgeable game that I have in my rotation. But yeah, otherwise no, I don't think I would be a proficient coach at anything else.
And that's a wrap on this interview. Hearing our coach break down how they keep us focused under pressure, work on strategy, and push us to improve has really shown us that improving and succeeding in this game isn't just about mechanics. It's about communication, trust, and the willingness to make mistakes for everybody. Huge thanks to Jobb for sharing their perspective, to the members of Mesopelagic for coming up with questions, to those who provided replay codes for me to use as background footage, and everyone else behind the scenes who continues to support the team in everything that we do. If you want to catch the team in action, feel free to pop over on my Twitch channel or Nam's Twitch channel, where we stream our scrims and tournament runs. Until next time.